Welcome to Suzanne's studio. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. I say this a lot, but I am going to emphasize it. I am really excited to introduce my guest, who is a brilliant humanitarian, and I'm not kidding. Her name is Dr. Rebecca A. Field. I mean, I could say so much more about you, but the whole half hour would go. Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Suzanne, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for making this possible.
I interviewed you, I think, several months ago.
Yes.
And I absolutely went crazy over you. And you gave me the book, To Choose the Fire of the Cosmos. I have to tell you, I'm not going to tell the audience, but it's been kind of a trauma for me the last few months. If I hadn't had that book, I mean it, I really couldn't have gotten through it. So you have to tell about the book.
Well, the book is the main idea of the book is really paraphrased by Mahatma Gandhi almost 100 years ago when he said, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." And I tell that to people and they look at me like, well, she's nuts. But what that really means is that humanity has evolved mentally and spiritually especially to the point that we are ready finally to take on our destiny as a whole human race, as a collective, as a united being. And this means in part that humanity will help the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. And we have been doing this to some extent for, well, certainly since the rise of science and the scientific method, but we'll take it on with heart as well as head.
You know, you said something in the book that once a person starts to read your book, that person will never be the same. Really. So in a way, that really presents a lot of responsibility, because now I feel, I've read it twice, that I need to be doing something for the planet. What can you suggest, Rebecca?
Well, Suzanne, that's exactly what the book was written for, exactly that kind of a response. And what can I suggest? Be true to yourself above all. Otherwise, it will never work. And somewhere in you has been planted some idea, and you're probably really close to it right now by doing interviews. I don't know, only you can say whether that's right, but you're probably doing something close to what you're supposed to be doing to help humanity and this whole planetary thing that we're involved in right now. Does that help?
It does, it does. But I think that in the book, it sounds like we're advertising the book, but it affected me so deeply, really, that I'm so interested in what is the cosmic? Tell about you and the cosmos.
Oh, well, I think my love of the cosmos started when I was about in the 8th grade, and my parents had and grandmother had a house in the Colorado mountains and I grew up in Denver, and occasionally my parents would let me bring a school chum up, and at this particular time I brought one of my school friends, and when the sun set over those Colorado mountains, and it's a beautiful thing. My friend I knew was interested in astronomy, and so she would tell me about, oh, that's Regulus, or that's Andromeda, or there's the Big Dipper, and so on. And she knew how far away they were and how many light years and what that meant. And, you know, it took me aback, made me very respectful of things that I hadn't yet learned. And she said, you know, sometimes I look up at the stars and I think they're my brothers and sisters. And it's a statement. I don't remember anything anybody in grade school ever said to me except that one statement. It was so all-encompassing and so broad and inclusive. It really touched me deeply. So that was the beginning of my cosmology trip. And I've always loved the stars, especially since that encounter. But the way my life has tended to approach it is through philosophy. And so I got involved in philosophy. I studied philosophy and found it very meaningful, and especially some of the things that I found in the Far East, frankly, because I've had the good fortune of going around the world 2 times, and I stopped in Asia for a long time, and questions were just answered there.
In what way? In what way?
Well, Suzanne, you know, I've always been one who has been searching for the truth. I think we all do in our own way. But I couldn't make what I had learned as a child come together until I found the Hindu tradition, the Hindu and the Buddhist traditions. And they added karma and reincarnation, which suddenly just answered a whole bunch of things that the Western religions and philosophies had a different viewpoint on. Not that they're wrong at all, but it just, for me, it came together with this Eastern and Western marriage, if you will.
The thing that I would like the audience to know about you is that you have worked so diligently for these causes, like the children and the women and children in Russia, and what's the other country that you worked with?
Ukraine.
And you helped saved thousands of lives from sex slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do something like that, how does that make you feel?
Oh, like I haven't done enough, you know. But
Yeah,
but
but-
I found myself in this position, and this is the way it came out. The Russians were immensely helpful, and you know, it's so funny that for so many years of my younger life, we were enemies with the Russians, and then I have come to know them, and they are the dearest people you can imagine. And they're so much like Americans, really. They're very lovable and very easy to understand, and certainly to work with, a great pleasure. And
What about materialism in our country?
oh, I think it's our problem. It's our main problem. Suzanne, as I look back at life, I think probably the most important thing is, well, first to know ourselves, know who we are. But then the question is, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, so the answer is all those wonderful people out there, and some of them need help so badly. So you turn to that. But I met my Russian colleague, guess where? At the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And she happened to be, this woman happened to be speaking Russian to my quote unquote Russian daughter, who was there with her mother, and of course they all spoke Russian, and they started a conversation. It was just one of those, it was an organic thing. It just simply happened. I didn't plan it, but I became very good friends with this woman in Saratov, Russia, and started to help them in their quest to end or control sex slavery, sex trafficking. And we probably reached 50,000 people.
Oh.
And it's an unthinkable thing to me that people would take young children literally, and I can tell you a story if you want to hear about it.
Of course.
Because the stories are so human, but there was a little girl who went into a store with her mother. I think her mother had to buy a pair of shoes. And a man came up to the little girl and he said, well, how old are you? Well, I'm 12. And he said, well, what would you like for your birthday? And she said, I want a Barbie doll. And he said, well, I think I could help you with that. So he spoke to her mother in the very nicest way and asked permission to take the little girl out and said that he'd bring her back in 10 minutes. Well, he never brought the daughter back. And, you know, these people who get caught in this, rarely do they live beyond 30 years of age, and their lives are, you know, they become indentured slaves to a thing that's just unholy, just awful. And so this is how it happens. And so we just went out to the schools and even young people in universities and talked to boys and girls, boys in particular, I mean not in particular, but and girls, because boys are vulnerable too, to try to tell them what to watch for to avoid sex slavery. And, you know, in the climate of Russia at that time, this was 15 years ago now, a lot of them thought that it was the smart thing to do to go and do this, and they wouldn't be told. And, you know, we did the best we could. You can't convince all of them, but we reached a lot of them.
But you're one person.
Yes.
How do you get other people to do this with you?
Well, I tell you how it happened for me. My Russian colleagues were doing it already, and they needed support. So I was able to provide the support for them so that they really are the ones who did it.
But you're one person, and you have accomplished so much.
Oh.
How do you do it as one person?
A lot of
That's why I
energy.
like you so much. I just think you're so effective. You really are. And I want to know how you do it. And I want my audience to know. Yes.
Well, I think I was born with having a great deal more energy than most people. It's just the way I was cut out. The other thing is that I'm very strong-willed. My poor husband, he'll tell you.
Really?
That's a correct statement. So, you know, once I take on a project in my mind and heart, I'll follow it down until I drop. But I never have.
You've never dropped.
No, never have dropped.
No. And the thing is, you're so smart, and you
Oh.
know, in the book, and you talk about, you know, which I think is so fascinating, about the trillions of other galaxies. And I mean, we're so lucky, I guess, to be born and on this planet. But then you have your other life, which I think is so interesting because it's the juxtaposition, really, but yet it's so important for you. Would you tell us about it?
You mean my girls?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I have 3 chickens. I live in Los Gatos, and Los Gatos allows 4 chickens. 4 hens. I have to emphasize they have to be hens. No roosters allowed.
But then how do they lay eggs?
Well,
Remember,
That's what
I don't
people-
know
I know.
that.
I knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way they're built. They don't have to have a rooster to lay eggs.
Oh, they don't?
No.
God, I'm dumb. Go on.
No,
No,
it's
I
okay.
am.
Well,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
wondered too.
So go on about your chickies.
Well, I love them. They're just the light of my life. And when I get too overwhelmed with this mental stuff, I just go out with the chickens, and it's just wonderful. They're very sweet, and they teach me so much about life and how to be, and how to be without ego, how to be authentic. Suzanne, that's so important, to learn to be authentic. And I can, they're just chickens, and they're happy to be chickens. And
they
that's
have
all.
no egos like we do.
I don't think so.
Now,
Probably not.
this is another question. Do you have any advice for us on how, I mean, we can't get rid of all of our egos.
No,
But
we
we're
need it.
such an ego. Well, I'm ego too. But I mean, but we're so concerned with what other people think about us
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is finally just to line up with the cosmos, if that's what you call it, with the one, the source, whatever it is. And it's called differently in the different traditions, and I try to embrace all of them because I feel like they are all essentially teaching us love. Doesn't matter which one. And that's the important thing, is love.
Could you define love?
Ooh. Can I define love? Well, it's kindness, it's caring, it's listening, and you listen so well. I want to tell you, it's
thank you.
it's a pleasure
thank
to
you.
be here for that reason. But it's thoughtfulness, it's willingness to sacrifice, to be silent and listen. It's caring, it's sharing, it's cooperation, all that.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all demonstrate that?
Yes.
Do you know what that book has done for me?
What?
Because I live now at the Forum, in a big facility, and I've always liked most people. I love to know about people and all that, but there are a couple of people that, I mean, there's nothing wrong, they're just boring, but since I read your book, I'm trying to make myself have dinner with them. I haven't done that yet, but I mean now, if we could think about it, to really embrace other people and to be kind, really, I think that is paramount.
It is.
And that's what you practically preach, don't you?
Well, I try.
I mean, you try. No, but how can we get, God, I sound like a minister, but no, everything is the golden rule, do unto others, right?
Exactly, exactly.
How can we get that across?
Let me tell you what happened to me last week. I was going up to San Mateo on 280, and I couldn't find the exit road, which was Crystal Springs. I just hadn't come to it yet. But I got out at the big service area where the statue of Father Junipero Serra is.
Oh, yeah.
I found a black man, and I went up to him, and I smiled, and I said, "I'm lost." And he turned to me, and he said, "Well, what can I do for you?" And I said, "I need to know how to find Crystal Springs Road." And he took out his GPS and did whatever they do with these things. I don't have one, so I don't know, but I watch it. And he said, "Oh, here it is, and here are the directions." And he handed me his iPod. I think it was an
iPad.
iPad.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't very big, whatever it
yeah.
was. And I read the directions, and he said, "Here, would you like to take this with you? Do you need it?" And I said, "Oh, I wouldn't think of it, you know." But that it's that spontaneous kind of caring. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Yeah, I think it was so beautiful.
How many people would do that, do you think, today?
I don't know, but I run into them all the time. Am I
Why?
unusual?
Why do you? That's so
I don't.
interesting.
I have no idea, Suzanne. I don't program the universe as I sometimes try to get a parking place, but you know,
Can you do that?
yes. And
So
can
you are different.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. You know what I think it is?
What?
I think that some people just exude being pleasant or smiling. I do. I really do.
They're happy. They're happy. And, you know, one of the great qualities that you find in life is joy. And people are attracted to that because it makes them feel good. I look at there's an Apple store in Los Gatos, and I love to go into it because, you know, it makes me feel like I'm 2 feet off the floor.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Why?
People are happy in there because they're doing their, I don't know what it is, but it's obvious. It's something.
But don't you think now, I'm going to be the devil's advocate,
Okay.
that now the young people, they're so interested in the iPhone and all that, and
Yeah.
they're texting, and they're not communicating
It worries me too,
we
Suzanne.
did.
I think it can be a real problem, and I don't know. I think one of the things that we can do is to bring on a better world, I think, is to use our imagination.
Could you just say a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Using our imagination to visualize what the future is going to be like, as long as it's positive and good for other people, as well as ourselves, is a tool that we have been given by the cosmos to improve things, as well as life here on planet Earth, and to help her, our mother, our Earth, because we're not taking good care of her. We're interested in profits, and you know, when that's all said and done, it doesn't make people happy.
But do you think at this time now they're likening our society to the fall of the Roman Empire?
Oh, sure they are. But
do
I've heard
you
that.
agree with that?
No.
You don't.
No, you know, we may fall, but I think we'll pick ourselves up with a kind of enlightened direction, because we will have found something so much better, so much higher, so much more glorious and, if you will, holy during our fall. I don't think it's going to last long.
So you have hope
Oh,
for the future.
absolutely.
Have you always felt that way?
Well, I think I tend to be optimistic. I was in Toronto a few years ago attending a conference, and one of the indigenous people's leaders was there with his wife, who is from Finland. And I asked her, "Do you think we're just going to go down the tubes here?" And she said, "No, not at all." And she said it with such force. You know, it's one of those things I really took on as my own, kind of. And, you know, I don't know what's coming any more than anybody. I don't have a silver ball or anything, but, you know, when I know what I know about the human spirit, like this black man who offered me his
His-
GPS,
His iPad.
his iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people probably would have taken it.
Well,
What do you think?
I.
But
I
you
don't-
didn't.
Oh,
But
I
how
couldn't.
dear of you.
I couldn't. But
Of course not.
but it was so sweet of him to do that. So very kind. And he, he was acting in complete trust and honesty. I felt. And it was just, it's that kind of thing that's going to pull us through. And I believe that black people need to be heard because they have a spiritual quality that's so powerful.
I'm so glad you said that.
Oh, yeah. And we need to pay attention to them, treat them right. I have many black friends, and I know what they go through, and it just breaks my heart. Yeah.
Well, we have 1 minute left, and all I can say is that we ended up talking about other things that I had different questions, but I think that you really make me think creatively, and I just am so happy to know you, Rebecca. I really am. And I thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so
I
much.
really have enjoyed it, and I think
So
you're
have I.
so interesting. The fact that you're so wonderful with all the things that you've done for the planet. And of course, I want to thank our crew. We have a darling, adorable crew, and I don't say that about everybody. And of course, I want to thank our audience for watching. I cannot wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.